It was great for a little bit.
Each of the last 2
Now
summers.
we're back to, I don't know,
No,
we're going,
my
we're
wife
going
had
skiing
this last summer. I
next
had 2
weekend.
summers before.
Pepper Fay,
He
yes.
just likes getting new parts.
Well, I'm not skiing.
Yeah, I just get old parts shaved off.
Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, February 1st, 2024 South Haven Planning Commission meeting. Call the meeting to order. Luke, if you'd call the roll.
Clark Gruber.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here?
Eddie Polk.
Here.
Amy Nichols.
Here.
Michael Neese.
Here.
Bob Sherman.
Here.
Mary Hosley.
Here.
Janice Varney.
Here.
Tim Stegman.
Here. Item 2, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 3, approval of the January 4th meeting minutes.
Mr.
Make a
Chairman,
motion to approve the January 4th meeting minutes.
support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the January 4th meeting minutes. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next up, public comment. Citizens in the audience may address the Planning Commission regarding items on the agenda for which there is no scheduled public hearing. And come to the, Dan,
Doing, Tim?
good.
Good. Dan Agnello, 964 Everett Parkway. I want to talk about the recodification. There's a few things I've seen in there I talked to staff about, but they still haven't made any changes on it, and it pertains to PUDs. There's still no ZBA appeal for any decisions made on PUDs. You saw my emails, I don't know, a few months ago. I contacted about 20 different cities up and down the coast and in the middle part of Michigan that are similar in size to South Haven. And a majority of them do allow you to appeal any decisions made in regard to PUDs. Now, staff says, well, that's because you can't do it because Planning Commission approves it, so does City Council. And you have due process. Yeah, the due process is a lawsuit. Citizens don't have $20,000 to go fight something they really believe in that they think is against the ordinances that are next door to them. And it's bad enough that how regressive our appeal is. You have to pay, for a zoning board appeal, you have to pay $500 to apply, and then $1,500 initially for your escrow. If they don't use the escrow, you can get some of it back. So you already got a regressive system as it is, and then PUD step in and you can't do anything. Like the recent one for Trailside number 2 had 12 conditions of approval. Okay, so there's no recourse. And then the next thing is what was I going to say now? Oh yeah, if there's a PUD amendment, there doesn't have to be a public comment meeting. There is for PUD, but not for an amendment. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, look at the amendment for Trailside 2. They're putting in 22 or 25 duplexes, okay? But it's not mandatory that, there's public comment allowed. It's not mandatory. It says, it used to say zoning administrator, and they changed it. It says the city now. But that should be changed. It should be mandatory, okay? If nobody comes and doesn't make any comments, that's fine. But public needs to have comments. Doing something right next door to them, that's not right. And PUDs have too much power. I'm sorry to say that, but I understand why they have PUDs, but there's a point now where there's just too much power. The citizens need some recourse, some recall, okay? You saw my email, I hope, on STRs. We need a cap. I discussed that. City Council looks like they're going to go with the cap, and it's just a matter what the number is. But the cap should include exempts. Because if you don't put exempts in there, and you don't put personal STRs in there, people are just going to go from business to personal. You haven't solved the thing, okay? Also, there's something in there. These are the 9 items that Kate had listed in the City Council meeting on December 4th. She can try to get consensus for the council. And one of the items was, item 2 was, if a house is non-conforming parking, then they ought to be allowed to have non-conforming parking for an STR. Well, no. That, I think the consensus of that was, no, it has to be, you have to meet the parking requirements for an STR. And maintain the permits on the windows, they're talking about leaving that out, whatever. And there's a lot of other items that I listed in my email. I'm not gonna take any more time, but when, we talk about the recodification, I've got some other comments on that, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dan. While we're at it, I'll read my Planning Commission comment log. These are the communications Planning Commission received. And on the 15th of January, 2 from Dan Agnello, limiting STRs and council appointment of Mary Hosley to PC. And Dan Agnello on 1/30, zoning ordinance comprehensive update. Additionally, Bill Roberts on the 19th, proposed Apache Court zoning amendments. And on the 31st of January, Anthony LaFredo, floating home ordinance comments. With that, are there any further comments from the public regarding items 6, 8, and 9? Seeing none, we'll move on. Oh. Come on, Pat.
Okay. Sorry, I'm old and slow. Again, what can I do? Okay. I don't know if this is on here, but Dan was talking about the PUD. I don't know if I can talk about the PUDs. I don't know. I would just say, again, I've probably said this before. The PUD, it always sounds so good. It sounds so good. It's like creative way to get a better project. It always sounds wonderful, but it just never quite works out that way. And now it seems as though if you want to do something that is not within our zoning, you call it a PUD. So we had somebody in here recently that wanted to do 3 houses. They wanted to be taller. They wanted to be this. They wanted to be that. Well, it's a PUD all of a sudden. So it never goes to zoning. It never goes to ZBA. Never goes to anything. Just PUD. So I guess you give them the waivers to go higher, bigger, longer, whatever. So I would say this whole PUD thing really needs to be looked at. And it just seems, it's like a get-out-of-jail-free card to me. So that's all I'll say tonight.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Going once, twice, third time? Okay, unfinished business, actionable, none. New business, actionable. Item 5, zoning ordinance text amendments. Floating homes. Kelly?
Sure. The topic of floating homes, I hope you all can hear me. We can thank my husband at home. Thank you, Brian, for bringing sickness into our household. So floating homes is on your agenda tonight as a proposed zoning ordinance text amendment. This item was discussed last month and as a result of recommendations from the ad hoc committee that met through 2022 and 2023 to study this topic, as well as input from the city's building official and city's attorney. As a reminder, the proposed amendments are found primarily in the Code of Ordinances, but there is a zoning component that would amend definitions and provide for floating homes as a permittable use in the B3 district, subject to the requirements of the Code of Ordinances. I also want to let you know this text was developed in collaboration with Nick Curcio, who is the city's attorney at the time. The city now is represented by Bloom Sluggett. We did send this text to them for review and comment. Those comments were sent to you in advance of this meeting, so they were not in your packet, but were an addendum to your packet. And so you do have those loaded. If you need help finding them, let us know. And as an additional reminder, we do need to hold a public hearing on this topic.
Okay. Can we put page 9 up on the screen? And then with that, is the commissioners have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
I moved to open the public hearing. Support.
It's been moved and supported to open public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public hearing's open. Anyone who wish to speak on this item, come up, state your name, address, you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Mary Lynn Boogie, 70 Gabriel Drive. I appreciated the joke as I'm reading through the definitions here, because we're now evidently one of the things cited for use at a marine terminal is for whale watching. And I thought, golly gee, I didn't know there were any freshwater whales around here. May I suggest that you might want to include fishing charter boats in there, which is a common use here, and it's not mentioned, and it might be good to reference something that's actually applicable. I assume that that is considered a water-based business, since scuba diving expeditions are, and therefore fishing charter boats probably are. And just a comment to keep in mind, encouraging floating homes in marinas. I have a concern about that if it becomes as unruly as short-term rentals have on land, because we have a great marina business that's just moved in here. We're also starting programs at LMC to maintain boats, and floating houses aren't boats and don't require the same kind of maintenance, don't have the same atmosphere. So just a caution to us. I hope we don't enlarge on that and it becomes floating hotels instead of boats and boaters and recreation. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dan Agnello, 964 Everett Parkway. I'd like to expound what she was saying. In the ordinance, there's nothing to limit the amount of STRs. And let's look at the money. It's always about the money. Should I rent out a slip for $2,000, or should I rent out a floating home for $4,000 a month for 10 or 12 weeks? And there's nothing to stop me from, he brought 2 down, he brought another one down from St. Joe, and nothing to stop me. He's probably got 5 more being built in St. Joe, and gonna bring them down over here. So as people decide not to rent a slip or purchase a slip, whatever it is, hey, put a floating STR in there, okay? There's nothing to stop them. And I don't know, I didn't go through all the verbiage in the ordinance, but you need to say definitively, no floating STRs in city slips, okay? South, north, whatever it was, the ones over by the boat launch, prohibit them for a fact. And then limit them to the other ones. If you want to count the number of slips available, put a number in there and say, okay, either the total number is X, put a cap, don't do ratio, don't get crazy about it, say, whatever, just so you can only have this many, okay? And start from there. But you've got to have, it's gonna happen, just like in 2016, it's gonna happen today. We have 900 STRs. That's because we couldn't control it. And the same thing's gonna happen with floating STRs. It's a fact, okay? Thank you.
Kelly, there haven't been any non-motorized floating houseboats at city marinas, have there?
No,
No,
they
okay.
would not be permitted.
Anybody else?
Andrea Hall, 410 River Island Drive, and I'm going to read just so that I don't forget things. In 2002 and 2023, I served on the ad hoc committee for houseboats and floating homes. That committee worked with Greg Weidkamp of Edgewater Resources to provide expertise in the area and help guide the committee's recommendations. After reading the proposed ordinance for floating homes, I noticed that the ordinance strayed from the recommendations of that committee in a number of key ways. First, the committee recommended that floating homes be approved via special land use, but this is not in the ordinance. Special land use stipulates that the use shall not change the essential character of the surrounding area, and the use shall not be hazardous to the adjacent property values. These are important protections that adjacent landowners should be afforded. Number two, the committee agreed to consider including floating homes that are used as short-term rentals under the current STR ordinance. That's not included in the proposed ordinance. Number three, the committee recommended an extensive list of minimum construction standards that are not included in the current ordinance. The language in the ordinance is notably vague, and then as a part of that, the omissions that were most notable for me were safety measures to mitigate accidental environmental contamination. Then number four, the committee recommended fire separation standards for floating homes. These recommendations weren't included in the proposed ordinance either. I'd recommend that the Planning Commission consider adding the spirit of these committee's recommendations to the proposed ordinance. In addition to adding the committee's recommendation, I would ask that the Planning Commission consider adding the following items to the proposed ordinance. All of these items can be found in the floating home ordinances that we reviewed on the committee in other cities. 1, maintenance and appearance standards with annual inspections. 2, paved parking requirements. For reference, the current houseboats moored in the city are advertised to sleep 6. So you need a number of parking spaces to accommodate that many. 3, direct sewer connection rather than holding tanks. The risk to the environment is just too high. 4, no open rooftop decks without an appropriate sound buffer. Sound carries over water, and that's doubly true when the noise is coming from an elevated position. Lastly, I don't understand why the current ordinance goes out of its way to exclude floating homes from being considered dwelling units when the ordinance states that they are essentially one and the same. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Anthony Lafredo at 348 Baseline. I think it sounded like you guys all got my email or what I had sent in to Luke. Obviously, 5 minutes, not enough time to go through this whole thing. So I think the biggest thing as I read through the ordinance and followed ad hoc committee and kind of been paying attention to this for the last year is I think the biggest concern is because I see we're trying to write definitions and have new classifications of things that have existed for a very long time. And as I read through some of the definitions, I've been in the marina business for 12 years now, been around boats a lot longer. I have a hard time understanding some of the differences between how we're classifying a floating home and what is a houseboat. Definitely understand what we're attempting to do, but I think what I wanted to highlight in the email that I had sent in was, at what point does a boat, when it starts to break down, become a floating home? As we kind of write some of the descriptions, we're focused on the way that it moves. Seen a lot of boats, have marina with 110 slips. I don't have an exact number for you, but I could guesstimate 10% of our slips are leased out to floating cottages on the water. They don't moor, they don't move. Maybe they have capabilities to move. We don't go around asking every boat owner whether or not an engine has failed. I own another marina down in St. Joe that does do a lot of service work, so I'm sure you guys have heard lots of stories over the years about boat owners, their boats, BOAT, break out another 1,000. Motors fail all the time. Lower units fail all the time. As we start to write new rules and new classifications, I think where does that line stop blurring? We could say, a house is constructed on a barge, or it has a fiberglass hull, or it has different things. The current homes in question, or boats as I like to call them, are registered through the state of Michigan. They have MC numbers. They've been certified as boats. And now we are having several meetings looking at different ways that our local municipality can attempt to claim that there's something other than a boat. I think on top of that, as we talk through inspections, just lots of different things that could come up. I'm not sure how we could look at one specific type of structure when there's 1,200 boats here. Again, I do understand what the biggest thing with all the definition writing is trying to delineate the two so we can say a boat's a boat and something else is not a boat. But as time goes on, I just don't know who are we going to trust to, kind of determined the way these definitions are written. You know, again, when I read them, and maybe I'm biased, but I can kind of say, well, maybe a boat can move itself, maybe it can't. I mean, that really does even go into 50-foot yachts. Maybe they can move, maybe they cannot. It's just to prevent from running on there. I just wanted to just again kind of re-highlight that I don't know that it's our job here in the city of South Haven to be determining what is a watercraft vessel outside of what can be registered with the state of Michigan as a watercraft vessel, as well as the propulsion, the move, the use. I mean, boats are boats. A lot of people use their boats the same way that we're trying to make out what a floating home or a houseboat, you know, a dinghy boat, all these things are. I mean, a lot of them don't move. From a safety standpoint, I think what the previous person had said, I think I agree. I think when all the ad hoc committee was coming around, the concern of safety, environmental uses, all of that, I think should be looked at. I think that is kind of the job of all of us, darn it. But again, it's kind of read the ordinance. It looks like what we're attempting to do here is create a new classification, rewrite rules and ordinances, you know, in a town that's had watercrafts for 100 years. I think that's all I got. Thank you.
150 years. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Is the commission satisfied with the text as written, or want to make amendments?
Well, I would say this, Chairman, a good point was made up regarding scuba diving and whale watching, although, you know, good examples, I think it wouldn't be bad to use maybe a more reasonable example for the city of South Haven. Put in charter fishing instead. So that would be an amendment I would propose.
I have
Chairman,
I have a question of my fellow commissioners. We talked last month about this, and I thought we had reached a consensus that we were not going to be concerned about anything other than what was required and to change the zoning ordinance. Other portions, I got to get my reference here. The Code of Ordinances, Section 39.91, was not anything that we wanted to deal with or thought was in our purview. Is that still our feeling on this? Okay. That clarifies where we go with the discussion for me then. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question rather than a comment. If I could ask staff, again, just understanding process. I did appreciate the citizen that volunteered to be on the ad hoc committee's comments. And I'd be interested to know what happens in the process once it leaves the ad hoc committee until it gets in text form in front of us. And I'd be really curious to know why we decided to eliminate some of the things that the ad hoc committee had put into their recommendations, and who did that?
Sure. I maybe can't speak off the cuff on each item that was mentioned because I don't remember all of them.
Sure.
Probably the most important is the change from the recommendation to regulate floating homes as special land uses versus in the Code of Ordinances. And, you know, once staff was working on drafting the text with the city's attorney, the recommendation really was that a marina is already a permitted land use and that the floating home was really more a subcomponent of that use. And establishing a floating home as a separate land use would be, you know, giving this other use a vested right, and we would end up in a position similar perhaps to some of the complaints we're now hearing about our short-term rental ordinance. And So taking that into consideration, we felt that it was better to proceed with regulations in the code of ordinances to regulate them through police power rather than all through zoning. Now, if that's not the desire of this commission and ultimately of city council, those are changes that, we can re-examine and certainly revisit. But the special land use ultimately just didn't seem like the most appropriate mechanism to regulate floating homes.
I understand it, thank you, Kelly, and to be frank and open, Kelly and I did talk about this offline as well.
Yeah.
And she helped me to understand as well. I really support moving things out of zoning into the general ordinance. It gives us much better enforcement power to have it in the city ordinance rather than a zoning ordinance. But I guess my question would be more specific. Do I read this text properly and understand the comment made by the citizen that offered their comments? That houseboats, if whatever name we come up with, houseboats would be excluded from our STR ordinance?
They're not currently included in the short-term rental ordinance that is on the books in the code and in the zoning ordinance. They're separate. This ordinance does not add them to that ordinance.
I guess that's my pain point.
That's
If
fair.
they can't be used as a short-term rental, then it only makes sense to me that they should be covered by the short-term rental ordinance.
The other item that I know I can address is parking. And because the zoning ordinance requires 1.5 parking spaces per dock, we felt that parking was already addressed through the zoning, and we didn't need to add another layer of regulation.
And being part of that committee, I think that was a good call by staff to change that from land use to permit. And I think the suggestion that's in here is only 2 permits per marina,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
So, and I don't know how many marinas we have. Most of them have no interest whatsoever in taking a slip for a boat and putting in this type of floating home.
So that the number would be automatically capped. And I apologize, I don't have the information with me tonight on the number of marinas, because again, that's part of the code of ordinances rather than the zoning. But there would be an automatic cap if you multiply by 2.
And the other big one too is in here is the construction, the Michigan Bureau of Construction Code under MCL 125.1519. Do we know the 3 floating homes now? Do you know if they would fall under that
I don't know
strict?
the answer to
We don't know
that.
that? Okay, thank you.
If I may follow up, based on Clark's comments there, so the ordinance requirement that restricts 2 per marina is still in place with this change?
Yes, that's found in the proposed code of ordinances language.
Let me offer you a scenario. What if I'm not in a marina, but I happen to live along the river in the B3 district, and I have a slip? Can I put a houseboat in there as an STR?
I think right now the language would require it to be within a marina as defined.
So a citizen could not have a floating houseboat?
That's my understanding. If that's a question that we need to answer more satisfactorily, we can do that. I can get that information and bring it back.
Yeah, if that's clear to the rest of us, I'm fine with it, but
Mike, do you mean a floating home versus a floating houseboat? Like,
I could
Houseboat
call it
moves.
a pizza and still not understand it any different. You know, it's like,
in my mind, a houseboat moves. It's just like any other cabin cruiser out there. Just that, in our minds, I'm sure we all think of those lovely kind of square 60s-looking actual houseboats. But you have to remember that it includes all kinds of other
yes,
floating boats.
that's well taken.
I think that's a good point, Mike. We recently approved, and city council approved, I think, the Minadiri
Yes.
PUD. and I think that included, was it 19 slips? And could they or could they not offer one of those slips to a floating home owner?
Two of them.
Two of them, but does that constitute a marina? Or would that be,
I think, Bob, that was
He
an
is a
established
marina.
marina
He is
before
already
the.
a
He is a
oh,
marina.
okay, pardon me, I didn't realize that.
He's existing.
With regard to the water-based business, I mean, it's being allowed per right as number 20 that was added. And the floating homes are a water-based business, correct?
Floating homes are not intended to be water-based businesses. They're intended to be occupancy, units intended for occupancy. Does it help if I
Okay.
put that up on the big screen?
Page 13.
Yep, no, I'm, okay. I didn't have time to very carefully review the revised ordinance, and I was thinking of the previous ordinance. But towards that end, with the decision to have them as right, you have, there were other aspects, and so the minimum construction standards, the fire separation, and all that will be incorporated into the regulatory ordinance, because those are all missing from the regulatory ordinance.
And I guess to that, I would say if there are items that the planning commission feels are missing from that ordinance, then it would be acceptable to take action on the zoning, or it would be exceptional to delay action and ask for that, for council to consider this text and send it back to planning.
Yeah, my biggest concern is, a policy decision was made, whether right or wrong, by legal, by our previous legal counsel and staff, but it was directed by city council at the April 17th, 2023 meeting to
Yes.
incorporate those restrictions or those recommendations.
Yes.
And that hasn't been done. And so the ordinances as a whole are lacking a complete picture of how these two ordinances are going to interplay. And so with the houseboat ordinance, with the changes before us today, without knowing exactly what would be incorporated into the regulatory, we may think that something might need to go into the zoning.
So I guess I mean, what things, it's probably not appropriate for this group to spend a lot of time on what things on what things are missing from the code of ordinances that were recommended by the committee that aren't there. But if it makes a difference, we can do that.
Maybe my point wasn't clear. It's that we were directed to look at ordinances that incorporate the recommendations. The recommendations now we're hearing are going to be in the regulatory. It would be beneficial to see both pieces side by side so that we appreciate the interplay between them.
Sure, but I guess I'm not sure what recommendations weren't incorporated. What recommendations do you feel weren't included in the regulatory code?
Well, I don't believe there's anything with regard to fire that was discussed. I do not believe anything on buoyancy was discussed. There wasn't anything with regard to the sewage being hooked up versus in a holding tank. And my concern with the sewer is, you know, there was an inference that they may be rented year-round, and how is that managed with the sub-zero weather
Right.
and the boats, and if they're not hooked up?
So I think these are all questions that we did deal with as we were developing these regulations. And I think perhaps what would help is if time was spent, if we had this list of questions ahead of time, then we could spend some time explaining the reasoning behind each item, what decision was made and why. Because there are reasons why. And we can do that. We can spend that time.
It would,
I don't have it ready tonight.
I understand that, but it's just, we don't have a complete regulatory. And I do know that the city council requested that they be included, and I did send in some information ahead of time. I do understand that that was forwarded to the new attorney, and actually some of the issues I had raised have been resolved with the amendments. Thank you. And I did raise an issue about sewage. So those are my biggest concerns, is making sure that what is allowed in our marina does not have a detrimental impact on our environment.
Sure.
And I would if we are going to be allowing this to go forward, I want to make sure that the regulatory is sufficiently strong to ensure that our river is protected.
I have a question. Clark, were you on the ad hoc committee?
I was.
And from what we heard from the person who spoke previously, she had mentioned that some of the things were not included that were presented or recommended. And I was just wondering if it would be feasible at all to look at what those recommendations that the ad hoc committee made that were maybe incorporated or not, but to understand the differences, because one is the environmental piece, one is fire suppression. So I don't know how that process worked and how you made a decision not to include them or to include them in another way, or if they're in the regulatory piece. That part for me, you know, it would be important to understand.
And we're just not set up to do that tonight.
Yeah, I'm not set up to do that tonight
No,
either. I didn't bring any
It was a
notes.
question I had. And
I thought staff did an excellent job of taking what we had and incorporating. Like I said, I think the permit item is better than the land use, especially when explained later once the attorney got a chance to look at it. Because sometimes as committee members, we put things together, not having that background of having our city attorney there at the time and actually coming up with a good plan. You know, if you think about the current STR situation, had that gone permit versus land use, we would have a lot more abilities to make larger changes.
Mm-hmm.
So this seems like a better way to go at it because, you know, 2 per marina, and most all the marina individuals that we've spoken with don't want this kind of floating home. Right now, there's really only one marina that has that desire, and they would be 50% greater than what's allowed, and they would just have to, you know, be stuck there with 3.
I appreciate the explanation, and I was just wondering if those pieces were all considered.
I think fire was considered, and so with sewer, we've got something in here for water. What we were missing was the sewer section. So there's one section
You
on
can't have
water.
sewer. It has to be a holding tank.
And that would be something that would just have to be made sure that that was aware. And I'm not sure if that portion is in this or is it inherent to a floating home like it is a houseboat or any other boat.
Mr. Chairman,
Larry?
and I've been listening to this discussion and I haven't heard anything about the definitions. And it seems to me that that's the important thing to this body. And those definitions need to be inserted in the zoning ordinance. They protect our zoning ordinance from getting us involved in things that are not land use. All of these other items are important, and they certainly need to be considered in the Code of Ordinance section. But for these particular items in the zoning ordinance that are in front of us, I think we should go ahead right now and make the changes in the wording of these definitions, if we have any, or approve them as they are in front of us now.
That would be the appropriate motion.
And get the,
Go ahead. If you're doing a definition motion, right?
Yep, absolutely. I would move that the planning commission recommend to city council two things. Number one, approve the revisions to the zoning ordinance as worded in the January 30, 2024 draft from Bloom Sluggert. And number two, apply those definitions to the Code of Ordinance, the definitions in the Code of Ordinance, Section 39.9.
Is it just 39.9?
I believe that's the only one that has, only section that has definitions in it.
Is there support?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Is everybody clear on the motion?
No.
Just changing the definitions.
Right, and the
nothing else.
definitions are reflected in the text that we received for
Yes.
this meeting.
The-
Larry, first of all,
In the addendum to them that came out
Yes.
to us after the second attorney reviewed them, yes.
I agree with your sentiment. I fully support it, and it goes back to your earlier statement, which I agree with too. We have enough of our own business to take care of rather than getting over into the business of the regular Code of Ordinances, so we need to stick to the zoning issues. So I agree with that. My issue, though, is on the definitions. They have to be clear and understood by the average citizen. For instance, let me ask a question based on the definitions. Is an STR a water-based business? The definition here says, hold on a second, any business in which the principal service received by the customers involves physically boarding a ship, boat, whatever. Well, that certainly meets the criteria if you're going to run it to sleep in it. You have to inhabit it. So by my definition, an STR is indeed a water-based business, and that makes them, they have to live under the ordinances, both in the zoning ordinance as well as the city ordinances, for being a business.
Well, I think the Code of Ordinances could prohibit rentals. If that's the desire of city council.
I'm not that far. I just want to see if our definitions are sufficient.
Yeah, we're gonna fix one right here. Clark's gonna make a motion to amend to strike whale watching tours.
Quite frankly, I thought whale watching tours was a generic term for sightseeing on a boat.
I think in the business, we talk about a ship, and I don't think this considers a floating a home a ship.
I'm not talking a ship.
Mr. Chairman? Can I
Yes.
ask a question? To be clear, the motion I heard referenced the Code of Ordinances, and I'm wondering if it was meant to reference the zoning ordinance.
What was it?
The motion was to approve the changes to the zoning ordinance and
Okay,
merge the definition into the Code of Ordinances
okay.
as approved in the zoning ordinance.
Strictly
Thank you.
definitions, and Clark was gonna
Yeah.
strike whale watching, correct?
I waited for some changes there and didn't pick up on it, so go
Page
ahead.
13.
Page 13 of that.
Mhm.
And I think that's section 201.23
Yeah, W.
W. and that would be to strike scuba diving expeditions,
Just whale watching.
strike whale watching tours.
Yes. Is there support?
I'll support that.
It's been moved and supported to amend. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, okay, the motion's amended. Any further discussion?
Are you? May I?
Please.
And you helped me clarify where my confusion was before with regard to water-based business, so thank you. Yes, that's the concern, is that water-based business can include a floating home. They're allowed in all B3s. All B3s would include all the marinas, and that's why I wanted the list of the marinas. And so we currently, by contract, in city marinas, do not allow houseboat type situations. But that's by contract, and that could change. If we really do or do not want them in city marinas, which my understanding is the boaters I've heard from do not, and I believe there's a waiting list, so why would we put them there? I share your concern with the definitions are not clear enough to avoid unintended consequences.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Luke?
Vonnie,
Yes.
Gruba,
Yes.
Polk,
Yes.
Heinig,
Yes.
Neese,
No.
Nichols,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Housley,
No.
Stegman.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, let's move on to item 6. Let me get reoriented here. Page
21.
21. Okay, page 21, 20.
Are you
sitting,
It's- I don't know, it keeps scrolling.
The screen is just scrolling over here.
Oh,
You
no.
can't see it, but it just keeps on going. It's very nauseating to look at.
Yeah, all right, I think we're on page 21.
Yeah.
So, 2024 short-term rental snapshot report. Kelly?
Sure. Each year, as required by Section 1743 of the zoning ordinance, staff prepares a report, bless you, that outlines the maximum number, or outlines the number of dwellings in the city, the number of short-term rental units, and a statement of the maximum number of rentals that can be registered as new short-term business rental units during the upcoming year. This year's report was presented to the City Council on January 16th, and we have included it in your packet for informational purposes, as we have done for the past several years. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the report, but the only action that we are looking for from you is to accept it or to receive it, as you all did last year.
Okay. Unless anybody has questions, I'll entertain a motion to acknowledge receipt.
I make a motion to acknowledge receipt of the short-term rental snapshot report.
Second.
Been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 7, public comment. Citizens in the audience may address the planning commission regarding items that are not on the agenda. Does anybody wish to speak about items that we are not covering this evening? Once, twice, third time. Oh, Dan Agnello.
Everett Parkway.
Dan Agnello, 964 Everett Parkway. Just a couple things about the ordinances and how they are enforced. And one of the ones is, sounds funny, but garbage cans that are on private property. okay? I didn't bring this up. My neighbors have gotten citations. They've gotten warnings. And there's been, I know not a lot of people that are rental agents, the same thing. And they're condo associations, they're in alleys, and they're getting written citations. And the code enforcement man says, well, it's the law, okay? But I'm not so sure. I think it should be clarified. Where does it give him right to give you tickets on private property? In my trail side, we pay to have our alleys plowed. We own the alleys. We put our garbage cans in there, and Best Way comes and picks them up, okay? But it's our property. So I'm not sure, like, can you get a parking ticket if you're in Myers parking lot overnight or illegally? I don't think so. It's private property. So somebody should look into that. I don't know if it's Griffin or Kelly or somebody, or I could talk to our great police chief, Natalie, or whatever.
I'm happy to talk to you about that.
But that's happening a lot. And one instance, a person got a citation. They didn't really own the property yet. It was still in Edwin Alden's name. But the code enforcement person said, oh, no, it's in their name, so they get the citation. So this may sound like a small item, but it happens a lot. You know, Aaron Cobb was up here, same thing. He gets a citation for leaving his garbage cans out, but Trailside can't cut the grass across the street. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a small thing, but it bothers a lot of residents, okay? Thanks. Thanks, Kelly.
Lisa?
Hi. I just have a quick question. Sounds like a dumb one, but you know the height ordinance is, I think it's 35 feet or whatever if you're building a building and you have to go from what they call the natural line or something?
You have to say your name for.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa Beck. I forgot where I live. 879 Monroe Boulevard.
Okay,
And
thank
I'm
you.
wondering, when you take the average soil, is what I've been told, is you take the average height of the land or whatever to decide how high you can build it. Simple question, can you or can you not import dirt to change that level?
No, that's part of the rewrite, that discussion.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So that means I can't talk about it?
No, I won't say that. I said
Oh.
we will talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's my question. Thank you.
But Lisa, may I? Lisa, are you asking about what it is under the current zoning ordinance?
Yes, yeah. Well, either one.
And no, you can't bring a dump truck of dirt and put it in and build it up 5 feet and then take your measurement. You cannot. Okay. Anyone else? No? All right. New business. This is discussion only, non-actionable. Item 8, 2024 Planning Commission study topics. So this is what I requested from, okay.
Yes.
So, last month we talked about, is there anything the planning commission has on their radar that either city council or staff hasn't mentioned? And one of mine that started it off was long-term rental inspections. So that was one of them. Another one I had was to look at annexing properties on the lake side of Blue Star Highway, all the way around. I think we should look at the golf cart ordinance again for operational periods. We've had a pretty light winter. Seems like still should be able to use golf carts in better weather. Height ordinance, all zoning areas. And the new one was from, that I think's worth a discussion, is from Bill Roberts, which was zoning amendments like for Apache Court and other areas. So those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I had. Anybody else?
I thought the Apache Court brought up some interesting areas within the city that that may not be isolated. It may be isolated, but certainly if it's not isolated, I think it would be good to look at it as in whole.
No? No. Anybody down here?
There are a number of things that will come up when we get into discussing the comprehensive review. a number of things that came up in the committee's discussion that we determined were not part of this committee purview that we made a list of, and we'll be presenting that to the planning commission, so.
Okay. I hear you. Anybody else?
Can I ask a question? Weren't you suggesting something about long-term rentals?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Oh, I missed it.
Inspections.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. To follow suit with the short-term rental inspections. Safety was cited as the premier concern for short-term rentals. I think that would also be incumbent upon us to have safety for long-term rentals.
Absolutely.
All right, unless there's anything else. Question, Kelly?
I'm wondering how you envision this moving forward.
Well, I think city council will have a chance to look at those topics now that they'll be in writing. And like Larry said, we have the comprehensive update. And we also have the master plan coming forward.
We do?
So,
Okay.
especially the annexation of everything this side of Blue Star, I think is important when we're talking about affordable housing.
I was going to say that in light of Palisades maybe reopening, I'm not going to say it will because I don't want to jinx it, but I think we need to look at affordable housing and long-term housing immediately, like faster than short-term rentals, because that's going to happen very quickly.
Okay, unless there's anything else, we'll move on to the next item.
Tim, if I might, if we're going to talk about anything,
Yeah.
I think the cover letter that Brad authored here would be fair game to talk about tonight. I have a couple questions over the language in that, not getting into the recodification at all. Just the, let me ask my question and see if it's appropriate. If not, we'll leave it till the next time we
All
talk.
right, let's see if it's germane.
Yeah, I'd be interested in understand the logic behind consolidating 3 industrial districts into 2. What was behind that logic? I'm not saying I disagree with it, I just don't understand the logic behind it.
Wait, are you on item 9?
Yes.
I'm on, yes, item 9.
I'm not.
On
So
page 58.
You're ahead of
hold
us.
thyself.
You're ahead of us. We're on
He
item
jumped
7.
ahead.
Or 8. We're on item 8.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're on item 8.
I'm not on item 9 yet, Mike.
I'm trying to get us out of here, Tim.
Let us catch up with you,
appreciate
I
Mike.
appreciate it. So, while
Oh, I'm
Mike's-
sorry.
While you're working
I do
on that,
apologize.
I'll finish up. Was there anything else for item 8?
Just one thing, can we move to 9?
Is that your motion? Move to item 9?
I'm sorry, group.
That's okay. I'll live. Item 9, zoning ordinance comprehensive update. Kelly, do you want to start us off on that, or is
Sure.
Brad gonna do
Sure, I
it?
will. So as you all know, over the past 12 to 18 months, a committee comprised of Councilman George Sleeper, Planning Commission and ZBA member Larry Heinig, and Mary McManus, who is a local resident and retired planner, along with the city attorney, Griffin Graham, myself, along with planners from Williams & Works, who are here tonight, Andy Moore and Brad Coderba, have been meeting monthly to work on a comprehensive rewrite of the city zoning ordinance. I just wanted to take a moment to say everybody's name who has been a part of that committee, and thank you all for the number of hours and effort that you put toward that effort, and which has resulted in the draft ordinance that's in your packet this evening. So thank you very much. Thank you for all of your hard work. And at this point, I want to turn it over to Andy and Brad, or maybe mostly Andy, who will give you a presentation tonight about the work that was done and talk some about next steps.
Andy will take the lead on this because he was the principal author of this, so I played a supporting role, so he's going to walk you through the presentation.
Okay, very good. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you to the committee members that you mentioned, Larry, George, and others. As Kelly mentioned, we've been at this for quite some time. We've been meeting for a couple hours a month to go over chapters of the zoning ordinance since, I believe, August or July of '22. So there's been a lot of time put into this, a lot of discussion, and so what we have here that Kelly's going to help me kind of walk through on the screen for you all is a fairly high-level introduction and overview of the ordinance. I'm not expecting a in-depth page-by-page discussion this evening, but I would like to introduce you to the document, to some of the, significant changes that we made, sort of what we were thinking, and what our next steps are moving forward. This is not just going to be a, one and done kind of thing. There will be multiple meetings, multiple discussion items.
So this is the macro view?
This is a macro view,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. So Kelly, if you want to jump to the next slide here in our presentation. So again, overview of the project. That's really most of my presentation is the overview. I do want to talk about some notable changes. It's a fairly short list at a high level. And then next steps, and then it sounds like there's already some initial questions that people have about why we did certain things. We'd be happy to take those again at a high level this evening. So really, this has been going on for quite some time. Yeah, go ahead. Back in 2019 or 2020 is when the city first, so that's when we started working with the city, was in maybe the spring of 2019. Shortly after that, and talking with Nick and staff, there was really a sort of realization that the zoning ordinance needed some help. Not that a lot of the work that had been done over time was bad or needed to be thrown out or anything like that, but there were a number of organizational kinds of issues. There were provisions that conflicted. There were references that didn't go anywhere. We had a hard time kind of working on amendments and getting everything to sort of work together as you insert new text amendments into the documents. We had challenges at times just simply processing site plans, because to figure out if something was permitted in a certain district, we had to go to this chapter, which led us to this chapter, which led us to this chapter, which led us to this chapter, and then those kinds of things, which made the document difficult, not only for us, but I think more importantly, it made it difficult for property owners, for the public, for developers, for builders, for staff. I mean, everyone, I think, was kind of struggling with it. And so at that time, we wrote an audit, as we call it, kind of a technical review of the ordinance. I think you all saw it several years ago. It's fairly, it was what, 10, 15 pages or something, where we went through pretty much section by section, page by page, and pointed out some of the issues and concerns that we had with the document, and eventually came to the conclusion that this isn't something that we can just, put a little, duct tape on here and there and put some, Flex Seal on this part and call it good. But it felt more appropriate for the city to sort of embark on a more comprehensive overhaul of the ordinance. Most of our clients go through this process every, maybe 10 years or 15 years or something like that, and it's been a long time since the city has gone through an exercise like this. And so I know the city had put it on, sort of in its workflow at some point, and then, eventually we move forward on it starting in 2022, continued through all of last year. Our last meeting was on December 21st or something like that with the committee. We spent the early part of January sort of fine-tuning what was there, and then, we have it now for presentation tonight. So there's still a few more months of work to go. Again, this is not a perfect document yet. I mean, I'm sure that we're going to have questions, we're going to have some minor edits and things like that to make. Go ahead and change to the next slide, Kelly. And so, again, Nick was on the committee, the last meeting that we had. Jeff Sluggett was also on there. He has a copy of the document as well. We work with him quite a bit, so I'm not anticipating any, huge panics from him, but certainly we will incorporate comments from the new city attorney, and we've also incorporated comments from the former city attorney when he was in that role. So really there's kind of three, I think, major focus areas here that are important for us and are important to sort of work on with the zoning ordinance. The first one is the overall structure and organization. And I want to sort of stress that while we did reorganize a lot of this of this document, I don't think it's accurate to say that this is simply a recodification. A recodification suggests that we're just taking what you have and moving this paragraph over here, and taking this paragraph and moving that paragraph over there. And while we did some of that, there's a lot more to this process than just moving blocks of text around here and there. This was a comprehensive overhaul, and our goal here is to really make this as user-friendly as we possibly could. That's going to continue moving forward. Eventually, when we get to the point where this is ready for adoption, we're going to have a fully sort of interactive draft with links everywhere so that when someone is looking at it online, on their iPad, on their phone, something that references section 2505, you'll just be able to click on it and it'll take you right to that section. So we're trying to make this as user-friendly as possible. And we're trying to organize it in a way that is as intuitive as possible for the public, for staff, for developers, for everyone else. Another major part of this is making sure that we have good processes and procedures in place. As you all know, as Planning Commission members, there's several different processes based on the type of application that you have, right? A PUD process is slightly different from a special land use process, which is slightly different from a site plan review process, which is different from a variance process, et cetera. And then regulations and standards themselves, right? Setbacks, lot coverage, parking spaces, landscaping. The actual standards themselves are also a big part of this as well. We recognize that a lot of work has gone into the existing ordinance, and we didn't go through here and change like every standard just for the sake of doing it. We actually retained a lot of the standards that are in your current ordinance because a lot of them, make a lot of sense. We don't want to introduce a lot of non-conforming problems by, making a setback that was 10 feet. Now let's make it 20 feet or something like that, right? You're going to create a lot of non-conforming problems when you do something like that. So we didn't automatically come in here seeking to make changes to every single standard in the ordinance, but where it made sense to try to simplify, clarify, things like that, we sort of took those steps, but tried as best we could to sort of maintain, the same spirit of what was in the ordinance existing. Go ahead. So with respect to structure and organization, simple thing, table of contents. We have an interactive table of contents now. That's not the only thing that you're going to get, but your current ordinance doesn't have that. So when I just pull it up online, if I don't know where something is, it takes me a minute to find it because I don't use your ordinance as much as, like, say, Brad does, for example. We have consistent headings, we have consistent formatting, subsection 1, then subsection A, then subsection 1, all that kind of stuff. That's all consistent. The fonts, the colors, the spacing, all the fussy Word document, word processing stuff is all consistent, so I think it's easier to read that way. We tried to break up some of the larger paragraphs that are in the ordinance and break them into more, easily digestible bullets or sort of numbered structures. And then the whole document has a simple page numbering format where it's the chapter number or the article number and then the page. So if you're on, if you're in, Article 21, page, then your page number is 21-1, 21-2, 21-3, et cetera. Again, little things, but they can make a big difference, especially when you're looking at amending an ordinance. You insert an extra 2 pages, you don't have to renumber the subsequent 150, you might only be renumbering the subsequent 5 or 10. So little things like that can make a big difference. Go ahead. I talked a little bit about process. So again, site plan review, special land uses, PUDs all have different processes. So our goal here is to make sure those are clear. When you're a developer, or when you're staff, or when you're the planning commission, you need to know step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Hopefully there's not too many steps, but what do you have to turn in? When do you have to turn it in by? What are you looking for? What's got to be on there? And then where does it go from there? What standards do you apply to make that decision? That all needs to be as clear as possible because we want a very predictable process at the end of the day. If you have a site plan and it meets the standards of the ordinance, we should be able to apply those standards, get to a predictable outcome of approval or not approval as the case may be, and then you can make a decision. And then this last section here again, we looked at every standard, we talked about every standard, we spent a lot of time going through a lot of the minutia of, should this be, 5 feet or 3 feet or something like that. For the most part, we kept a lot of the current standards. Again, we're not in here to just take all the work that's been done over the years, dump it in the trash, and start all over. So you'll see there are some existing regulations in there, a lot of them that were retained and carried over to the new ordinance. You'll see language in there that probably reads very familiar to you because it's probably the same thing that's in there now. But in instances where we could reword something slightly, clarify something slightly, you know, make it a little less legalese if we possibly could, we did that. Because again, we want this to be approachable, predictable, easy for people to understand. So let's talk about some of the changes. I talked about the organization stuff already. There's new graphics throughout. You've probably noticed that already. There's, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, you know, pictures that I think do a really good job of explaining some of the concepts much better than the old ordinance did. And a lot of older zoning ordinances just don't have many graphics in there at all. Or if they do, they're small. They've been photocopied too many times. They're hard to read. So again, cleaning all that up. We consolidated the I-1, I-1B, and I-2 into simply 2 industrial districts. We did that because we didn't see a lot of difference between a couple of them, so we felt like it made the most sense to consolidate, I think it was I-1 and I-1B, just into one I-1 district, then have a separate I-2. The existing ordinance has there's still an existing PB1, the professional business district that was in there, but I don't think it was mapped anymore, so we just took all that text out. That was replaced by that hospital district that you adopted a couple of years ago. So we took out, again, the stuff you don't need, wasn't going to be used anymore. The intent was always to sort of move away from that text and, you know, use this newly developed hospital district language, so we fully integrated that into the ordinance. We eliminated most of the high-risk erosion overlay district language because that is completely duplicative of what the state is already doing. That lifts right out of the statute, and an applicant would have to get an EGLE permit for that kind of work anyways. So we didn't see a lot of value in keeping all of this stuff. It was very confusing to try to figure out, you know, what a difference was between readily movable structures and easily movable structures and all of this other stuff. So we pared that down so it's clear where that is, so the zoning administrator knows, hey, this development, because of where it's located, needs an EGLE permit. So Mr. Applicant, or Mrs. Applicant, as the case may be, go get your EGLE permit and then come back when you're done. We also eliminated the M43 and I-196 business loop overlay. Again, that was something where it added a lot of regulation and we didn't really see a lot of benefit to it. There are additional standards in that chapter that talk about landscaping and access management and a lot of that kind of stuff. And as we work through the draft, that's already covered by our proposed landscaping chapter. That's already covered by some of the existing language that we already have. So adding another layer of regulation on top of what you already have with what we felt was, you know, minimal benefit seemed like, again, we're just making it more confusing or making it more difficult for developers, for staff, for the public, and everything else. And then we sort of reworked the PUD chapter. This is a fairly notable change. So PUDs are in zoning are primarily processed one of two ways. You know, what you do right now in South Haven is PUDs are processed as a special land use, and we're proposing to process PUDs now as a rezoning. So you'd rezone to a PUD district. It's an approach that I personally find is easier to do procedurally, and I think at its core, a PUD is not a land use type. So you know, processing one as a specific type of land use to me does not, you know, make a lot of sense. PUD is more of a tool that you use to get some flexibility with zoning, and then within that, you can have various land uses depending on your underlying zoning. But that's obviously a fairly significant change, and we want to make sure that you understand sort of what we're proposing here and why. So those are kind of the big ones. So the next steps, there's a bunch of topics that the committee deferred to the Planning Commission. We will bring you a list of stuff probably at the next meeting where we will seek your input on things like, I don't remember all the topics off the top of my head. Building height was one of them. Parking, I think we might have something about RVs in there. There's like half a dozen, 8, 10, something like that. It wasn't a ton, but there were a few things where we felt like the Planning Commission input would be valuable. I would anticipate, 2 to 3 more of these kind of working sessions to get through that list, to make any other changes or corrections or edits that you would all want to see to the document. Eventually, we'll send it to your city attorney, Jeff Sluggett, and have him you know, offer any final comments before the Planning Commission holds a public hearing and eventually recommends adoption to the City Council. So there's a few months left in this process. We're certainly open to comments and questions. Go ahead, Kelly. So at this point, I guess those sort of high-level questions, I'd be happy to take those. Again, I don't really want to get into, you know, on page
Macro questions.
14, paragraph
Okay.
3B, why did
Macro
you write
questions
this?
today.
So big picture questions, I'm here and happy to answer whatever you have. So, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back over to you at this
Okay.
point.
I'm gonna start to my left furthest over, and we'll just go with, if you have a question for him.
Nothing specific, but I applaud the way in the table of contents, you could click on any of those topics and go directly to that section of the document, which was wonderful, but I kept looking for the back button. I wanted to go back to where I had
Yeah.
been, and I didn't find that. Is that,
Yeah, so we'll eventually be, so right now, I mean, this is it's a really long Word document. We'll eventually be putting this into InDesign. I think there is the ability to put a back button in there, so we will do that if that's something that you want.
well,
And
I
it'll
think
be
as you go
more-
down one rabbit hole and you want to go back to another one, that's really, really helpful, but
Yeah.
just my thoughts.
Yeah, and so we'll work with you and staff on kind of getting a format that works and accomplishes sort of everything that you're looking for moving forward. Absolutely.
I have no questions or concerns.
Okay.
I'm just bummed Lisa Vick left because I wanted her to see the drawings that explained to the height and how, yes, you couldn't bring in a truckload of dirt. So for the first time ever in one of these, I understood what a drawing was. It made sense to me, A, B, C, A minus B. So thank you for that. That was wonderful.
Yeah, overall, I'd like to be able to get in that at a later date, but I think the graphics are very helpful when individuals are trying to interpret both the verbiage and how that can be applied. Although, you know, these graphics are representation and not necessarily a particular home or one home where property lines are different than another home, but I think it gives us a great place to start.
Yeah.
So,
Illustrates the concept for sure.
and that's part of the concept to make that easier. That was it. That was my comment.
I think my big questions have been answered.
Good. I'd hope so.
By the way, when he said, well, we gotta talk about these 5 or 6 items, those are the ones you didn't wanna stick your neck out on, huh? You're gonna bring them back to
Right.
us.
Yes, I wanted more than just George and myself, so you're all involved now.
Janice?
Yeah, I do want to thank the committee. I mean, it was a humongous effort, and they did such a good job. And it was such a relief going through it because I struggled with the last edition that we had. So it's very user-friendly, and the graphics really do help a lot. And it's concise and precise, but doesn't get into the legalese so much that it trips you up as you're trying to figure out what you want to know. So thank you, committee in particular, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the work for this. And I did had sent in some comments that I think you guys saw and incorporated some of the changes. Thanks. Some basic questions. So with someone who has to have reading glasses, the text is very gray, very light gray. Are you intending to leave it that color? I find much darker color much easier for people to
Yeah,
read.
we can do that. I'm not married to that kind of stuff. If we need to adjust the text a little bit, make it slightly bigger, whatever, that's no problem. We can, happy to do that.
Yeah, I think the color. And I noticed that some sections were in red and some were in black. Was there a significance?
Yep. So there's 3 sort of, so we have kind of the main article titles that are, big capital, then we have a section number, section 2505, and then in black, you'll see like 2505.02. So it's like a section and then a subsection underneath that. That's most prevalent in the special land use and site development chapters. And it's just a way to organize the document in a way that I think and hope makes sense. It does to me anyway, so hopefully if it does for everybody else too.
And then for the zoning districts, I noticed like Articles 4 to 6, and then Article 14 was for manufactured homes and 18 was for PUDs. Was there a reason to keep them separate? It seemed like that might.
Yeah. So The manufactured homes one was something that we added in at the very end of the process. We have to permit manufactured homes by right someplace in the city, so right now I think those might be a special land use, which is not an approach that I'm comfortable with at all. So what we did is that was an article that I had held as reserved from a long time ago, so I put it in there so we didn't have to not start over, but sort of, reset the committee with all of the different numbers. So that's why we did that. And then the PUD one, I guess, that wasn't set at 14 for any particular perfect reason. We typically just sort of add it to the very end of all the district chapters because it's not a traditional district in the way that all the other ones are. But again, that's simple stuff that we can move around if it would make it easier.
That makes sense, and some of it's residential, some of it's mixed use,
Exactly.
so.
Yep.
And just as you're coming forward, so for process, will you be providing charts of like what went where and what were substantive changes?
So because this was such a comprehensive overhaul, and I've tried to kind of come up with a way to
Map it?
and it's such a mess that it's completely incomprehensible. So for certainly some of the, I can kind of go through as stuff comes up, what's changed, but I was not anticipating providing you with like a, track changes version because it's going to be 500 pages long.
It's impossible.
It's going to be
No,
so
but-
much read that it's going to be,
Just
unfortunately, it's going to be really hard to figure out.
for the sections that were substantively changed, like lot coverage.
We can look at that. I don't think we changed much in terms of lot coverage. I don't think we changed a ton.
We aren't, I'm trying to,
Setbacks.
But yeah, I don't know that there's anything, I'd have to take a look at that, I guess. If
There
there
are
are
a
certain
couple.
questions, we can address
I'll
those.
cover
but-
that when you guys are done.
okay, I'm just, because of notice requirements with amendments, and those are more like amendments as opposed to recodification, so that's why I was just.
Yeah, when we get to the adoption process of this, we will notice it as a completely new ordinance. So we're not going to say, section, 2505 was moved to section, 1703 and that kind of thing. That's going to be, again, we'll notice it as a complete and total new thing.
But I'm of areas that, to me, in my initial review, appeared more substantive versus reorganization.
Yeah, if you have specific questions where you want me to sort of highlight the changes, you can certainly provide a list to Kelly, and we can kind of walk through those. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, yeah, and I'm looking forward to this because I saw some areas that could have some more changes for affordable housing purposes that I would like to see, so. But that's getting into the weeds. Thank you.
Very good.
Mike, anything?
Yes, I am keeping this macro, and we are on agenda item number 9. First of all, I think he accomplished one of the objectives very clearly. I do think it's so much more user-friendly. I appreciate the work that went into that. I love specifically the table of contents, even small things. I loved your chart. If I want to do this, where do I go?
Yep.
That's the level of clarity I would hope we provide our citizens. Geez, I want to build a shack, I want to put a shack on
Yeah, build a barn or something, yeah.
on my yard. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? So I thought that was really good. I also appreciated the format. I realize we're probably, by regulation, have to use a specific font and whatever in city documents. I don't know. But I sure love the font that you guys used and the spacing that you used. It was far easier to read.
Simple is better in my
So I
opinion.
encourage that as well. My other questions are minutia. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I do want to warn you and Brad, the devil's in the details.
Sure.
And we're going to want to see that minutia. I think philosophically, I was all for this being, make this user-friendly, clean up the redundancies, let's do a continuous improvement project on this. I am not as comfortable with any standard changes that were left to 5 people.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, we brought it, I mean, it's got to come to the planning commission
Yeah, yeah,
anyways, and we would, certainly welcome a comprehensive review.
I mean no disrespect for the work you did. It's a much better document. If you can make sense to me, you've come along.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Okay. So going forward, as we review each section and what we'll call now the micro, the one thing I want to make sure that is done is that we're conspicuous for any of the dimension changes, setbacks, that you specifically say, hey, this is where we talked about it, and you guys had 3-foot setback, and we think it should be 5 foot now. So any of those changes, we need to know up front, and that'll help you for not having to go back and read our old ordinance, comprehend it, and memorize it, and then read this one and try to jive the two. High-risk erosion overlay, I'm glad you got rid of that. That was good. And the manufactured housing district, I'm glad to see that, and I think if we do some annexation, we could have that automatically. And that's where I was going with that one. So, that's good. And then staff will print you a hard copy if you want, okay? So I know for me, this big document, knowing that I wanted to mark it up, and it's a lot of paper and a lot of ink, so ask Kelly and she will print one up and you can come down and pick it up. With that, I think that's it. Otherwise, I think we're headed in the right direction. Oh, and prior to our next meeting, why don't you get us a list of all the items that you think are gonna be a discussion topic? So we can have that ahead of time and formulate some plans, because if we're only gonna have 2 or 3 meetings, time will be of the essence. And hopefully we can have some things pre-thought out as we arrive to the meeting, especially with height. I mean, we go over that all the time. But the one thing that was different this year is the locker project. It's a 5-story in the CBD, and should the downtown have a new 5-story limit? I think that's a valid one. Okay, so I think that's it. And anything else from you guys?
I think we're good. We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tired of reading this stuff, Brad?
Reviewing his stuff quite a bit for the last year and a half. So yes, I've been looking at it a lot.
Yeah, I've been one time through, and I was like, oh. All right, commission member and staff comments. Kelly?
Sure. We talked a little bit about affordable housing, and so that would bring me to talk about our master plan update. And next month, I believe we're anticipating being able to kick off our master plan update process. So I think that will be definitely a time, not to say that we cannot talk about affordable housing as we go through the zoning ordinance update, but definitely a great time to talk about that as we are, looking again at our master plan and making some updates to that document as well. And I wanted to remind you all that there have been a lot of emails coming through with training opportunities from Michigan Association of Planning and Michigan State University Extension. So if any of those look appealing to you, make sure to let me know and we'll get you signed up. There is an in-person citizen planner class being offered in Van Buren County. I know it's a big undertaking. Some of you that have gone can attest to that. It's worth your time, but if that's not an option, there are lots of other opportunities. So just encourage you to take a look at those.
Are you anticipating quite a bit of rewrite of the master plan?
We are not anticipating a full rewrite. There was a major undertaking with the master plan in 2018, and so this would be an update with a coastal lens. We received that Coastal Communities grant specifically for this project. but we'll definitely focus on housing as well.
Heavy lift 2024.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Luke? No? Okay. Well, we'll start with our new member, Mary.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Kelly, I don't think I got the emails for the training, so if you could send those. And I don't think I got the communication, one of the communications from, was it Robert on Apache?
Okay, I can send that too.
Didn't receive that.
And it may be that we haven't added you to the MAP membership yet, so we can take care of that too.
Yeah. And just thank you, everyone, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Mike?
Yeah, just to reinforce something that Kelly mentioned, I do really recommend MSU Extension Service courses. They're very well thought out. The Citizen Planner class helped me a great deal. I think it would, if you have not taken it, I really highly recommend it. I'm reluctant to mention this because I'm not so sure how much time I've got to finish it, but I've moved past the Citizen Planner. I'm at the master level now. I need to do my final exam and a presentation to you guys, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Should I not pull one of my, well, that was fun kind of thing and not do it, but it's a lot of work. But I do recommend their stuff. It's if nothing else, it provides different perspectives and different lenses than we've grown for ourselves. So you get to meet with a lot of different people from a lot of different communities and hear what they're doing. I think, Robert, you enjoyed it.
I did very much, yep. I appreciate the recommendations. And several that Kelly had forwarded were very attractive as well, but almost all are in March, as I recall, and I'm going to be someplace else in March.
For what it's worth, and I know it's almost impossible for a lot of us, but I do recommend the in-person classes if you can make it because of the network that you build with other administrators in the area. It's been very helpful to keep that network alive. Thanks, staff, as always. Kelly, they don't know how much work she does before we get to this meeting, but we must have talked for nearly an hour today, and only a half an hour of it was, Brian's got to be more careful with his health. But,
Robert?
As I mentioned, I'm going to unfortunately need to miss the March meeting. I will be out of state traveling, so sorry about that. Welcome to Mary. I have every confidence that she'll be a very significant and valued contributor to this group and this effort, so look forward to working with you, Mary, over the years to come.
I've been in, I really don't have much to say. I've just kind of been in a listening and learn mode tonight. It's been very interesting, and just kind of soaking it up and gathering some wisdom here before I speak. But Mary, welcome. Nice to meet you. I'm new on the board as well. So I'm in a listening and learning mode or so. Thank you.
You must have had the same conversation I had with Kelly today.
I didn't talk about Jamie, I swear.
What? No, I talked about Brian, though. Yes, he needs to keep his germs to himself. Number two, yes, I think there are a lot of heads nodding about packets, so I think you'll be busy copying for a little while longer. Sorry to give you more work. And welcome to Mary. That's all I have.
All right. Welcome to new Planning Commissioner, Councilmember Mary. Additionally, I encourage you, Mike, to complete your program. I also encourage a short presentation when you give it to us.
You know what the topics are.
Yeah, we know.
And I also want to comment on, we did get an email this week, and someone had made mention about not having residents on a committee. And I think there was a Mary, a Larry, and a George who are residents on that committee, plus 2 staff members who are Kelly and Griffin, who are residents. And that there are 9 planning commission members who are all residents, and 7 council members who are all residents. So we live and work in this community. Just want to make sure people do remember that. That's it.
I want to thank the team from Williams and Works. It's been a pleasure working with you over these last, and I hope the rest of you feel that way after the next couple of months also. That's all.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that as well. Good work, and also for the staff with the packet. It's always, I mean, after I receive the packet and go through it, my question box gets shorter and shorter because you're answering the questions as I'm going along in my mind. So thank you for that. And yes, Mary, welcome.
All right, that's down to me. So I will hedge and say, good start. We're not done yet. What's the other thing? Something big happening this weekend, isn't there?
Canceled for lack of ice.
Was it? They planned it that way.
The sleds are still on Phoenix for voting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's going to be a great weather for the 5K.
45 degrees. Yep.
Not so good for the sled ride.
So thank you, everybody, for coming. I think one last item is we only have one ad hoc committee yet to complete this year, which is shoreline protection. And we've had some changes on planning commission. So I think I've got a couple available seats that I'll appoint some people when we get closer to that time. But that's it. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to adjourn. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. See you in March.
And welcome, I should have.